Hi, my name is Nilam, and I was a refugee in Nepal for 10 years. This is a story of how my family became a refugee and how I got to America. I apologize for not having pictures of my family because we didn't have any camera back then, so I could not find any pictures that were taken of my grandparents or my great-great-grandparents or any pictures. Although I did find one picture from back then that kind of shows my grandparents and my dad, but that's probably all I have. I did not have to trace a lot about my family heritage because I was a refugee immigrant, and this is how my family story goes. This all starts when Britain tried to colonize Bhutan. Bhutanese government saw Nepali people as strong fighters because Nepal was never colonized, never has been. Therefore, Bhutan tried to take Nepali people to fight for them. So Bhutan was a small country and they did not have enough people to fight for them, and they did not want to be colonized. Therefore, Bhutanese government bribed Nepali by saying, if you fight for me, we will give you land, we will give you animals, and Bhutan was a beautiful place to live in. Therefore, Nepali people got bribed, including my grandparents. After the war with Britain, Bhutan still remained independent, and Nepali people got what they asked for, which was land, animals, and a place to live. As they were living, Nepali population grew largely. Day by day, Nepali population was growing and growing, and Nepali people were hard workers. Therefore, they had lots of lands, a beautiful house, and they were getting wealthier, even wealthier than the Bhutanese people that lived in Bhutan. Nepali people were doing so well that Bhutanese government slowly started to get very jealous. Slowly, Bhutanese people started hating the idea of Nepali people ruling their land. Us Nepali, we had their own tradition and our own religion, and so did the Bhutanese people. They had their own religion, their own practices, and their own culture. Slowly, Bhutanese government started fearing that the Bhutanese government would lose their culture, their religion, and tradition, and start following Nepalese tradition. They also started getting really jealous of Nepali people because they were growing larger and larger. Not only that, they were bringing their own tradition, their culture, and trying to erase Bhutanese culture. Because the Bhutanese government feared that they would lose their culture, their tradition, they decided to kick all the Nepali that lived in Bhutan out of their land. Going back to the story, my grandfather was in the army in Bhutan and he fought for the war for Bhutan. Therefore, my grandfather had lived in Bhutan for a long time and he had 12 children there, including my dad. My grandfather and my grandmother, they were very wealthy people in Bhutan. My grandfather was in the army and he was a very well-known and respected man. He had a great farm, a great house. Everything was going so well in Bhutan. But since the Bhutanese government were kicking Nepali people out, raping the women, they were killing people, they had no choice but to get out of there. Although they had 12 children, they lost 3 children in the journey from Bhutan to Nepal. As my dad tells me, the journey from Bhutan to Nepal was not that safe. There were a lot of people trying to go to Nepal. They had to walk. They didn't have any cars to travel, and they lived by the river for many days. They tried to go to India. The India government would not let them in. They had nowhere to go, so they went back to their country, which was Nepal. Even when they got to Nepal, their own country did not accept them because they hated the fact that they left Nepal just for their own selfishness, and then they came back because they needed help. Therefore, Nepali did not accept the Bhutanese Nepalese. Then we became a refugee in our own country, and we were handed over to United Nations. My mom and my dad, they were both born in Bhutan and got married in Nepal in the refugee camp. But me, along with my brother, my little brother, and my sister, we were all born and raised in Nepal refugee camp. And I lived in a refugee camp for 10 years before I had the opportunity to come to America. As we have learned in class, the process to coming to America is not that easy. We have to go through lots of interviews and health checkups, and we have to go all through that. Although I don't remember everything, I do know that we had to go through a lot of interviews and lots of steps, but we had the opportunity to come to Spokane, Washington. When we came to America, we came with 2 duffel bags. We had our uncle already in Spokane, so we lived in their house for 2 weeks. Then we had to get a job, and my parents had to go to the ESL school, and we were enrolled in school. They had to start working. In the beginning, we were really excited for America and land of freedom. We had our dreams and hopes, but when we got here, it was more challenging than we expected. Everything was so hard. The language was so hard. It was so hard to feel belonged everywhere we went. We were looked at and judged. As the years passed by, we got used to living here and how things worked, and we started working, having jobs, and we had cars, and everything got so much easier, and we are really happy to be here now. And yeah, and slowly the rest of my family started coming along with my grandparents and my uncle, my aunt. We're all here now, except for one uncle, but we're all happy. Although we did lose our grandfather due to COVID last year. Religion-wise, half of my families are Hindus and the other half are Christians. And career and work history-wise, in Nepal and Bhutan. In Bhutan, we were, I guess, farmers, and in Nepal, we did nothing, I guess. But in America, we started out with minimum wage jobs, and some of my uncles and my dads are working on getting more educated. And as far as I know, none of my family members in the whole Karki ancestry has ever finished college. The first one to finish college was my cousin because she graduated last year at Eastern Washington, and none of the women have ever finished college. And my dad is also working on his degree, and I'm not sure how to answer these questions, but what I've been through from refugee camp to coming to America and everything, I decided to major in international studies so I could also help the refugees and give back to the community which was given to me in a desperate need.